Yes, please have a cup of fresh brewed coffee. It's absolutely delicious. Yes, they have decaf too. That's my personal favorite. I drink enough of it. All that is mine, actually. So anyway, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for taking time after your vacation to come out of your comatose states to join us again for this lovely Tuesday morning in the horrible weather. I just want to say, again, I want to apologize very much for the delay of both the minutes and the agenda. Unfortunately, because of commitments that the administration had with strategic planning and myself, we didn't really kind of get to it as a to-do item. We're going to try to do better this month coming. And with that said, we're going to get started with the middle school initiative, Health Moves Minds and Responsive Classroom.
Good morning. My name is Devin Orozco. I've seen many of you before here and other places. My role in the district is I am the Director of Science, Health, and Physical Education, K-12. So I am here to talk a little bit more about the health side of it today with two things that we're doing in the middle school, and then the responsive classroom actually overlaps to the elementary schools. So things that you may have heard about going on in phys ed this year are instead of doing Hoops for Heart this year, the phys ed staff has talked about doing an initiative through Shape America. And basically what happened was a couple years ago, NJAFERD, which is the Professional Association for Health and Physical Education Teachers in New Jersey, and Shape America stopped promoting the American Heart Association's Hoop for Hearts and Jump Rope for Hearts. So it's still a good fundraiser, it's still a great thing, but it's not aligned so much with the standards, with the initiatives that we're looking at now in our elementary schools and our middle schools. So the middle schools are taking the lead, right, and they're the ones that are willing to jump out a little bit first. And so instead of doing a Hoops for Heart fundraiser as they've done in the past, this year they're talking about doing a fundraiser under Shape America called Health Moves Minds. One of the reasons is, like I said, because NJAFERD and Shape America don't endorse the Hoops for Heart and the Jump Rope for Heart anymore specifically. This is what they're endorsing. So we're trying to move with the times and with the suggestions of the professional organizations that our members are a part of. And the idea behind Health Moves Minds is that it's not only a fundraiser, it's not only a one-day event, it's actually a whole school-wide initiative that students, parents, and faculty members can all take part of together. The Health Moves Minds, it's an overall larger program. It's not just a fundraiser, but fundraising is part of it. And so the schools actually have the ability to choose their own fundraiser. So they could even do something with basketball. They could do a hoops for Middletown. They could do a jump roping something. They could do a color run. They could do a fun run. They could do a big obstacle course. So there are a lot more opportunities for them to choose what each school population might be interested in doing in terms of a fitness-focused event. And then they have the opportunity to, when they do their fundraising, they get some of the funds back directly to the school in the form of a gift card from one of the sponsoring companies. Gopher, I believe, is the one that they're using. So Gopher would then they give the gift card, again, it comes from fundraised monies for equipment for the school. The schools have the opportunity to either take more of the funds for the school or to split their proceeds and do half for a community charity that the school believes in, or keep not all the funds, but that portion. So what it does is it allows the community, the whole school community, the students, the parents, the teachers to kind of come together and decide, what do we as a school community believe in? What charities do we as a school community believe in? What do we need for our school? Where do we see our biggest need in terms of health and physical education? What extras would they want to provide for their school and their students? How can we use those funds? So that's the general idea of Health Moves Minds, is it's in place of Hoops for Heart this year. Some of the elementary teachers have been talking about transitioning from a Jump Rope for Heart to a Health Moves Minds, but they haven't come to a general consensus, so I'm not ready to talk about what they're going to do as a general elementary population yet. But there are some who are at least interested, and like I said, I think they're going to wait and see what happens with the middle schools and see how easy it is to run, and then go from there. And as you know, many of them already have their own fitness fundraisers that they're doing between the color runs and the fun runs and things like that. So I'm interested to see what they decide as a group and as individuals. We'll see where it goes. But that's what they're doing, at least for this year, in the middle schools. So along with that fundraiser, they also have a wealth of resources for the teachers that they'll be using that are related to social and emotional health and wellness. And part of that is that community outreach and care for others and empathy and all those other parts of social emotional. So it goes right in line with some of our social and emotional learning goals as our bigger goals. So that's part of it. The responsive classroom is the other piece of that addresses social and emotional wellness in our students. And so at the middle school, we are piloting the responsive classroom at Bayshore. We send, I forget how many teachers it was. I think it was six.
Yeah, 6 or 8.
6 or 8, that was my guess. 6 to 8 teachers from Bayshore went to a 4-day intensive training over the summer. And so they are incorporating and implementing responsive classroom practices and approaches. Like I said, right now it's a Bayshore initiative. What we're hoping is that we're already seeing positive results. It's not that we're hoping for them, we're already seeing positive results. And every time I talk to the Bayshore staff, between the administration and the teachers, they're telling me wonderful things. I've had teachers ask me to come in and observe that part of their lesson to see what it's like and how we can maybe move this forward. Yesterday, for part of our professional development, there were teachers who stepped out of their comfort zone and actually presented to their peers about how they're doing responsive classroom at Bayshore and the positive gains that they're seeing in their students to help to promote that to the other middle schools as well. We haven't formalized how we're going to proceed to the other 2 middle schools or even to Bayshore as a whole yet, because like I said, right now it's got 6 to 8 teachers who are trained, but it is certainly on the radar to help us meet that district goal of a continued social emotional health awareness for our students. And then at the elementary schools, we are doing more with responsive classroom. So if you have children in an elementary school this year, hopefully you're hearing about morning meeting. So morning meeting is an initiative that we've embraced as a district. So every elementary teacher who has a homeroom this year is doing morning meeting with their students. We had a 4-day intensive workshop in October for about 25 of our teachers and a few administrators to learn more about responsive classroom, because it goes well beyond the morning meeting. So the handout that I gave you this morning is 4 pages, and I apologize, it wasn't double-sided. I'm in a different building using a different copier. Shame. But anyway, so there are many, many components to responsive classroom that are beyond morning meeting. Morning meeting is just the tip of the iceberg, but it's one of the ways that we are looking to bring, and we are bringing that social emotional wellness piece of it to our students. So we're trying to give our students that sense of love and care and community first thing in the morning. That idea that they're welcome and that they're that's such an important part of our community. But beyond that, it's also about academics. So our teachers, we also have about 24 teachers in a workshop right now, taking place for another 4 days. And so they're doing, it's called the advanced course or level 2 course. So these are teachers who've already been trained in level 1, and now they're doing the level 2 training to go even further. So what they're learning about this week are things like engaging academics. So how do we engage our students in their academics? What best practices are out there? How to nurture a sense of positive community, how to effectively manage your class with positive reinforcement and positive management instead of talking about punishment and repercussion. We talk about positive and proactive discipline and use in the classroom, how to set your classroom goals, and how to they call it developmentally responsive teaching. So we talk a lot about what development stages are all of our children at each of those stages. So the kindergarten teachers look at what a 5 and a 6-year-old are like in their brains and their bodies and their minds. What are they going through? What can they handle? And how do we, as educators, make sure that we're treating those kindergartners the way that they need to be treated versus the fifth graders? And they have very different needs and abilities, and so they're learning about how to take those things into consideration. So we are also looking at how to bring more responsive classroom approaches to more of our teachers. So we're starting this train the trainer model, how we did the morning meeting, and then we will continue throughout the year, and I'm sure into the summer and fall to get prepared even more, to have even more teachers trained in it for next year.
So by the end of this fall, each building will have 2 train the trainers, 2 staff members who can serve as turnkey trainers for the rest of their colleagues, both having attended level 1 training, and one of them now attending the advanced training. So we will continue that cycle and move more staff members through that official intensive training process to build capacity.
When is the goal for that? You said to have to.
By the end of this, actually by the end of this week.
By the end of the week.
By the end of this week, because
Okay.
the advanced training is actually happening this week. So by the end of this week, each building will have two.
At least two.
At least two who have gone through first level training, and one of those two will have now finished by the end of this week the second level training.
Is any of the research for responsive classroom based in neuroscience? At all? Do they,
Yes.
they do any of that? And do they have the kids meditating using mindfulness practice or any of that?
They do. So one of the pieces of responsive classroom, if you implement it soup to nuts, one of the pieces is called quiet time. So they don't call it meditating, but the idea is that when they come back from either lunch or recess, the teacher plays some sort of quiet, calming music. The students are seated at their desk or in their learning environment, whatever that is. If they choose to sit on the rug, but the idea is independent. Do what you need to for those 5 to 15 minutes. At kindergarten, it's more like 3 to 5. At 5th grade, it's more like 10 to 12 minutes. And they have that time to just kind of recenter and focus so that when they get to class that they can start doing that again. Yes?
Okay, specifically for middle school. I'm reading this and this seems like pretty common sense stuff. And I know this is a lot of work and time and effort of our teachers. How is this different than what we're doing already? Like, it seems to me like our teachers already are trying to build a positive community. They're already, so what are we not doing that we should be doing with this?
So it's putting a formal process into place. So a lot of it seems like common sense, but it's only common sense when you think about it and focus. And so with our middle school teachers, what it is it's our elementary teachers are, that jack of all trades, right? And so they're with those same students many of them, right? All day. And so they see the children from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. They see what their emotional swings do throughout the day. And our middle school teachers don't always have that advantage, right? They're only seeing them for 80 block chunks. So it's trying to teach our middle school teachers, or 60-minute chunks now, how to incorporate some of this mindfulness, how to incorporate some of that positive community building into their 60-minute chunks, because they're not going to do a morning meeting every block. So how do we incorporate things like positive community building into our 60-minute academic chunks where it's still focusing on those engaging academics and having students be in touch with things like their goals and their dreams, their hopes and dreams, and then their goals for the day or the class.
It also ensures consistency in the use of language of all teachers, so that students aren't traveling and working with different adults during the day and hearing different words used to convey similar meanings, because that can become very confusing, especially for students who, like in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, who are traveling through those blocks, and high schoolers as well, and interacting and engaging with different adults.
Sure. I have a 5th grader, and she raves about the morning meeting. It's like the favorite part of the day. One time she had a dentist appointment, they asked me to bring her in, so she'd go to morning meeting, then pick her up, and then bring her back. Yes. So from a first-hand kind of just focus group of one perspective, I think it's going wonderfully. But I'm wondering what quantitative metrics you might be using to kind of measure the success of this in terms of, are you seeing less disciplinary issues? Are kids' stress levels going down? Like, what are the bigger picture ways to kind of see if this is going well? I know, like, from my kids' perspective, it's going wonderfully, but how does the district look at that from a bigger picture?
Some of it is that anecdotal data, and so we've been getting so many positive reviews, both from the parents, the students, and then also the teachers. And the teachers are telling us that they have far fewer discipline issues, and then talking to the principals, in those buildings that have far fewer discipline issues. The stress levels are down, talking to the SPSSs in the buildings. So I don't know that we have hard and fast data on it, but we are looking at it and comparing it to where we were last year.
And Mr. Smith might want to chime in, because I don't know if this is one of your particular admin goals, but I know some of your colleagues. So the principals are also attending the trainings at different stages, but by the end of this week, I think all of our principals will have attended at least one training with their staff members as well. And the building goals, many staff members have made responsive classroom part of their professional development learning plan this year. They've created district-wide resource warehouses that they're sharing ideas with each other across the district. And many of our principals adopted responsive classroom, the rollout of the initiative that have metrics, measurement metrics related to it as part of their administrative goal for the year. So I don't, if you want to share.
To your point, it starts with the morning meeting, but there are also so many more concepts. And a lot of our teachers are not, trained to the level where they're soup to nuts. Like I would attend training with Mrs. Orozco here, and it's very involved. And really, it's overarching, it's really like a class, it's an all-inclusive, like, let's create this environment where everyone feels safe and valued, and that's just going to help learning. It's trying to prevent, and it makes classroom management easier. It's trying to deal with difficult behaviors so they don't happen. So it's like a proactive approach to all the ancillary stuff that happens during like transitions in the classes and things of that nature. So really, that's kind of what I see it as, but it's really been, wonderful.
It also dovetails with our other major district goal this year, which was a focus and emphasis on creating a more inclusive learning environments. So responsive classroom supports mindset and growth and acceptance of your peers and others, in spite of whatever differences there may be. This one initiative kind of serves as an overarching umbrella, touching upon many of our district goals.
And quiet time is amazing.
Mr. Smith likes it.
I know what happens, so I sometimes join. And it's sort of like, I wouldn't use the word meditation, but some of my teachers play calm music, and they have to do independent work, and they just can't talk. And it's just kind of, it's work of choice. They could read independently, they could do dream, but it's just quiet time to get them ready. And, some of these classes coming in after recess, they need that quiet time. So it's like strategically positioned.
And a little bit to Danielle's point, like a lot of this is stuff that like many of our teachers are doing.
Yeah.
And we know that a couple of years ago, we did roll out brain break activities and different things, but there was no set philosophy or, I'm using the word curriculum loosely here because there's, curriculum to attach curriculum to responsive classroom is kind of like a stretch, but there were no formal guidelines or trainings or resources to support the idea of brain breaks. And this really does align with that philosophy of giving students intermittent points throughout the day to work on social skills, like that's what the morning meeting promotes, positive relationships, community, common language that they're all using with each other. When they're frustrated, don't act out by hitting, use your words, things like that do seem so common sense, to most of us as adults, but it's not necessarily common to 5 or 6 year olds. And then giving teachers the strategies for teaching those common sense skills to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 year olds.
And if I could just add too, yesterday's professional development day, which was set up with a choice and an ed camp model, seeing the significant numbers of people attending with their choice, the social emotional learning components that were being put on by their own colleagues was, for me, is always a strong indication about what kind of implementation you have of your initiatives. I agree that the word curriculum is too strong, but purposeful practice and then continuously creating, because it's building level goal, it's principal goal, it's district goal wise, continuous opportunities for discussion on this should allow us to get to a more consistent implementation.
And ultimately, the goal really is learning, and it really is academics. And so the idea is that if you're socially, emotionally, mentally, and physically ready to learn, then we will see gains in every other area that we measure. But it's almost trying to level the playing field, and make sure that all kids, again, by the time we start our day, are now, in a place where they're ready and able to learn. Yes.
So in the elementary schools right now, the morning meeting is standard and quiet time is standard across all?
Morning meeting is the standard.
Right.
Everything else is kind of coming out in bits and pieces as teachers train their colleagues. So some teachers who have been trained in it immediately went back to their classroom. They've been doing quiet time. They've been doing closing circles. So, Ms. Peak has mentioned brain breaks. Now, responsive classroom calls them energizers. So it's the same kind of thing that we've been doing, and now we call them energizers. So a lot of the teachers have already been doing it, but now we have a different name for it. Academic choice, we call personalized learning. So there's all sorts of different things that our teachers have already been doing that we're almost giving it a different name to and a better structure, I think. But yeah, some of those other pieces are kind of rolling out, and we're almost using that positive peer pressure right now as a good thing. And so classes and teachers will start to use quiet time, and then other teachers will hear about it and then come ask questions, and then they start implementing. It's almost like a domino effect down the hallways that we've been seeing.
Okay.
But no, it has not been mandated yet.
Okay.
The morning meeting is what everyone has time built into their day, and then everything else is as it fits and as the teachers can do. Yes.
This
pamphlet that you gave out to us, I know it's the Responsive Classroom,
Yes.
the company put it out.
Yes.
Is there a way to put this on the website so we can point our families to it? Because I think it's a helpful overview. And I'm also wondering, is there anything that they've created for parents that's more grade specific, like the specific language that the teachers are using? I think it would be great to know what words are being used with my kid. I can reinforce that at home. Because obviously, I mean, we deal with some of these issues at home too. So to know how the teacher is guiding our kids to handle those stressors at school would be great to be able to reinforce it at home as well. So if there's anything, and I can go look, but if there is anything grade specific or anything that we could then pass on to our families, that would be great.
So there's a book, one of the main gentlemen that was developed Responsive Classroom, his name is Chip Wood. He wrote a book called Yardsticks, and what's really good, it's a great read for educators and or parents, or if you're one of, one and the same. But it gives, I've read it and they refer to it multiple times. So it gives the development, like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, it goes to the book up to sixth grade, and it tells you, what they should experience educationally, social emotionally. It goes through it all, and it's a really easy read. And furthermore, they have some parent resource cards. And one of the things that we did, we photocopied them this year. There's probably a video. Anyway, we gave it out to parents on back to school night in each grade. Kindergarten got theirs, and it's a really good resource. It just tells you like what milestones your children should be expecting from them at certain grade levels. And he happens to be the one who, is one of the forefathers of Responsive Classroom.
But it's one of the things that I and we are working on is that kind of part of a website or wherever we're going to host it, resources for parents as well as our teachers. I also have a committee that'll start meeting with me after school now that we're almost done with training, to try to put together what can we do, for parents, what can we do for our teachers, what can we put out there, because they do have some materials on the Responsive Classroom for parents, but this was the majority of it. So I agree. I think that we need to put together some of our own things so that you know what we are doing.
Thank you.
As parent leaders, one suggestion I would offer for you to consider is hosting a parent book club in your buildings through your PFA. If parents want to come and read and then talk about, like a book like Yardsticks or any other of the supporting materials, that's a good activity that I've seen in the past when I was principal. PTAs used to offer parent book clubs on topics that support what's going on in the school, so that, like Rachel said, there's that homeschool connection. A lot of buy-in from that too, from parents, because it actually, as a former parent of young children, my kids are older now, but you do need strategies as parents, for dealing with the hitting, use your words, not your hands, at home, because it does happen at home too.
So there is a lot of studies done, more scientific than you're talking about, not the greatest, but the aspects of it. So there are actually a doctorate and something about that. There's so many studies about mindfulness and these things that you can look online. It's a lot of work to decipher through them, sit through them and get what you want, but there is concrete scientific evidence. What they can do brain scans these days, there are studies that show the development of the positive part of the brain versus the negative emotions and stuff like that. Very concrete, not just in the book, which is important, but real scientific evidence.
Yeah, there's a lot of research to back it up. Absolutely. And I will also say that for the high school parents in the building, there are a number of teachers who are embracing a social emotional learning goal as their professional development plans this year. So there's a whole host of teachers who are using other resources because Responsive Classroom only count themselves for K-8. But I found a couple of other webinars and pushed them out to a number of our teachers who are exploring them this year to see what they can also incorporate at the high schools. And again, saw a lot of sessions yesterday at the high school level also on how to incorporate that into our day.
Okay, if there aren't any more questions, we'll move on with the agenda. And we're going to get an update on the strategic plan from Dr. George and Mrs. Rogers. Thank you very much for coming.
I don't know, Deb or Robin, if you guys would like to start, and then I'll chime in.
So the update on the strategic planning is that we have our Forum 2, and you can go on the website, Middletown K-12, I believe the agenda is on the website for Forum 2, so you can kind of see what you're getting into there. There's a section of questions that will be asked of the public, which I think is really helpful. And I think it's on the website. I'm trying to find it. Of course, I'm not going to be able to find it. But yeah, that's really helpful going in there to come ready to go. It's at High School South. And it's going to be in the cafeteria at High School South, right? On
Yes.
Wednesday night at 7 p.m.
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night already? Geesh.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's what I would do. I would look at that agenda and come prepared. They're going to break us into little groups of board members, educators, parents, and come up with what we think the goals of the community should be, what we think our district goals should be. A lot of what we just talked about with the social emotional, I feel is not really prominent in our goals and our mission statement. So that was the first thing that jumped out to me, and I took a bunch of notes last night, so that's probably what I'll be chatting about, adding some more of that social emotional in there. I know that's what I was thinking, but curious to see what everybody's thinking and what the public thinks are the most important things to focus on. It seems like the goal is to get maybe 2 to 3 real concrete goals to work towards that we can go to Forum 3 with. I don't know, Dr. Joe, if you want to add anything else. And Schoolhouse Strategies will be running it, obviously, but we'll be there. Yes,
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, okay.
I actually tried to look at the agenda, I forgot to print it out, but if there is kind of requests for parent feedback, is there any way, if there are going to be specific questions asked? Like last time, there were 4 questions he put up at the very end or said out loud, and like our comments, my comments at least that I planned, weren't aligned with that. If there is something where we can kind of tell our parents,
right,
be ready to talk about this, it would be helpful.
It's under the strategic, Chris just pushed it out to me while you guys were talking.
Oh, sweet.
So
Thank you, Chris.
it's under the Board of Education tab,
Yeah.
the strategic planning link. Scroll down once you open up the strategic planning home, like,
Yep.
and it's about 2/3 of the way down under strategic planning public forums.
Yeah.
The forum number 2, there's a hyperlink to November 13th agenda right there.
Yeah, it kind of just talks through though what the agenda of the meeting is. It doesn't go into specific topics, which I understand. Are we going to be broken out like into breakout things? Is that how it's going to work? I
The
wasn't
mission
clear.
statement building. Oh, maybe that was only for the board.
I think there is
I
an
have it.
expectation that there's going to be a small group session.
Okay.
Yes.
So
All right.
looking at vision, the mission, after a review of
The data. Okay.
survey data that's available to us.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, will they provide, they're not going to provide the survey data ahead of time, ahead of the meeting, they're going to go through it in the meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, my understanding after our conference call yesterday, right, was that, and I think Amy also spoke to that, George, yesterday, that it's going to be a main emphasis on developing a cohesive mission and vision statement, because that's what drives then your goal setting, and it focuses everyone, on what the priorities are, and then that would lead you into Forum 3 in December, where you're going to now be identifying areas to develop goals and actionable plans.
Right, so we're looking for values and beliefs. It says a definition of values denotes the degree of importance of something or action with the aim of determining what actions are best to do or what way is best to live. And a definition of beliefs is assumptions and convictions that are held to be true by an individual or a group regarding concepts, events, people, and things. And so then part of their presentation, which I'm looking at right now, I have the PowerPoint presentation for tomorrow night, it's to look at our district mission right now, on the website right now, and see what you think of that, and to see if we need to adjust and think of different things.
So should we
And
try
to
to
be very
direct?
broad, yeah, they give the advice to be very broad.
I think from our perspective, what Schoolhouse Strategies, was, and we had phone calls, Ken alluded to with them yesterday, was for us to stay just enough on the sidelines to let them do their job, and making sure that we're vetting out and spending enough time really doing detailed in the fact that we really want to know what our community thinks, and we're doing enough listening. Yesterday, I had a meeting with staff as part of, I was one of the breakout sessions for those that wanted to attend, and I was grateful that, we had a pretty good amount of staff members that went through both in the morning and the afternoon. That is one of their choices, And the one thing that I said yesterday that was really important is that, number one, sometimes students ask me if I own the schools, and it's very important for everyone to know, and you know that I do not own the schools. That I am not king and I am not mayor. I am not mayor, I'm not king, and I don't own the schools. And none of these decisions are going to be made by us as a central office administrative team individually, that the board is really focused on. This is a community thing. But in that place yesterday from staff, we really wanted to know what they thought and what their ideas were and what were the concerns. And a lot of discussion about class sizes came up. Other discussions came up, as you might expect, the divisiveness of both sides of the town and how we can address that and how they can help in that process. And of course, very quickly, it always goes back to, for me, the understanding of the misperceptions. Our last 5 years strategic plan was very successful, and it's important for everybody to know that. And there were two things that were going on. We had a strategic plan that went very successful. We had a facilities ad hoc where there was a lot of discourse, right? And so there's a lot of back and forth about those two things, and very quickly everybody gets to, in every discussion I go to, village, goes right to village, and it goes right to redistricting. And I said that it was a good laughable moment, and I said, well, we don't use that term redistricting. For me personally, that's a very painful memory. We talk about, how we're managing enrollment moving forward, and someone said to me, what's the difference? And I said, please don't ask me that because I don't know. But I just know that I'm trying to disassociate with this one negative thing that we went through, right? So, the reality is, and what we're seeing and reviewing the survey data, and I am reviewing the survey data. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, Kim and I went through on question 10, every single one of the written responses, 996, I believe,
like that.
Written responses, and that one we felt it was really important for us to look at. Now we're giving no feedback to Schoolhouse Strategies because they don't want to hear from us, because it isn't about us, it's about you and about what you think. But for us, we just want to know what you think too, and we think it's important for us in our minds to start being able to have conversations with the board and with the public, and to get a better understanding for these clarifying conversations we have with you. So that's where it is, really, for us. We want to go slow enough to make sure we're not meddling, we're not interfering, we're listening.
From what I understand, I think that Schoolhouse Strategies advise that when we come up with those 3 topics that are the most important to the community, only then will the board members go in and read the written comments, because it would just be, we can't read 10,000 comments each, So I thought that was helpful to organize my thoughts as a board member and say, how am I going to hear what everyone has to say?
Yes.
That was a good point.
And we're having follow-up conversations about what, Chris, you might want to add in, about what we can do to help them mine through the data. Chris Rotolo has done a tremendous amount of work on that. That's probably as much as we should say. We're hoping to get to trends for the written responses in this discussion. It wouldn't get any further than that. The top trends, right off the bat, class sizes over and over again comes up as a really, big thing. One thing that we were saying yesterday in our conversations with Lynn Strickland, what's evident is whether we're talking about the multiple choice, the written responses, or the comments that we've got in the forums, they're all pretty consistent, with what people are concerned about. They're concerned about class size. They're concerned about special education program resources. They're concerned about those common things that we really pretty much keep hearing, and we think that's a good thing because it's showing that the data that we're getting in the survey is consistent with the verbal feedback we're getting from community. So it gives us a better sense of that we believe that what we're reviewing in data is consistent with what our community thinks.
Have you seen Schoolhouse's data readout for tomorrow yet? And does it align with kind of what you read firsthand? Does that make sense?
Yes. Have we seen the
trends?
Or whatever their
trend,
whatever
they're
their
looking for the
presentation is going to be tomorrow on the data and what the survey said.
Oh, not yet. We haven't seen.
I think they were still reviewing to identify the
Okay.
trends. Yeah.
So it's
Basically-
I'm grateful that you guys are reading what
I'm
we're
seeing what
seeing.
they're seeing, but we're
Okay.
not discussing it.
Okay.
I think I said that right. It's to the point, because like, we don't wanna
Yeah.
actually
We don't
have
want to
input.
influence.
No, and that makes
And
sense.
they don't want, like, they don't want us there.
No, but for me, I
Which is
feel
good.
like
I mean,
there's
they're
a
strong
kind
enough.
of
They're
control in place,
independent.
which is good, and that you guys have read what we wrote, and you're gonna see what they present, and if it doesn't align, you'll be like, something's off. But you're kind of like the only people who've seen both sides.
All we've seen to this point is the slides
Okay.
that they developed.
Okay.
But that part, and slides that we're giving, we gave a secondary slide because the community asked for it.
Okay.
Class sizes.
Where it is on class sizes and enrollments. We're trying, we've got this database of 50 slides. We're trying to add to it based on what we're hearing from the community or a board. I think that might have been the board too. That might have actually come directly from the board, where that came from them, from you. The community talked to the board talked to us, and this is kind of how it really should go. So we did, work over the break with Pat Fenella and Mary Ellen Walker and Kim and myself and Amy, and giving more clarity and more information. We reviewed those slides with Schoolhouse Strategies.
Okay.
That was basically it.
Tomorrow, are they gonna be like, based on what I remember from the survey questions, they gonna be like, here are the top 3 things that the respondents marked for question 1. And if we look at parents of high school versus middle versus elementary, here's how they changed. Is it gonna be that granular, or is that for a future meeting?
I don't think it's going to be that granular. They said somewhere between 5 and 10 major trends for them.
Okay.
And we haven't seen that slide.
Okay.
They're not finished with it. As a
Got
matter
it.
of fact, Lynn said that the 2 of them were working on that today,
Okay.
and so we don't even know.
That's
They
it.
asked us, what we were seeing in the reviewing of the questions,
Okay.
and that was about it.
The third
I think
form
that's the
is
third
more
Okay,
one.
Yeah.
got
I
it. But
understand.
I just want to make
Yeah.
sure I set people's expectations, because I've had a bunch of people text me over the break, what's happening at Forum 2, do you know what we have to do, are there going to be questions they want us to prepare?
So here's your homework for everybody. Each group will be asked to write down 3 to 5 answers to the prompt. Over the next 5 years, what principles should guide the district to, number 1, better serve the children, number 2, be more efficient, and number 3, prepare for future challenges. I like that. So that gives you something to think about before you show up tomorrow night.
Can you read it again?
You want me to repeat it?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Is it on the website?
I should take a picture of it.
Is it on the website?
No, this is my, I think this is just for the board. This is my,
I think it's part of the slide deck.
it's part of the slide deck for tomorrow night, yeah. So over the next 5 years, what principles should guide the district to better serve children, be more efficient, prepare for future challenges?
I'll speak to Schoolhouse Strategies after this meeting too, and see if I can get the slide deck today, so that I know they were meeting on it this morning.
Okay.
So I'll try, if possible, I'll get it up today.
Okay, no, that'd be great. I think people,
Yeah.
like, last time, we came, and then there was that, at the last second, he like threw out, here are the 4 questions I want you to address in
Right.
the comments. And if you weren't thinking in that line, which none of us were, we all kind of got thrown off a little bit. And I know by the second and third forms, maybe those questions were more public, but at the first one, I mean, I just got up and said what I wanted to say, and I didn't even align with it, because I didn't know the questions were there. So if there's anything in advance we can share, so people come more prepared, I think would be
Yeah,
great.
but that kind of thing is good too, Rachel, though, because if it's something different that they didn't think of, we want to hear that. We want to hear from the community. And
But I think
if
it
is something
intimidates
different,
people from
good.
getting up and talking.
Oh,
Like, that was what I was
yeah.
nervous about, that people might have been willing to talk, but then it was like, oh, but I'm not in the structure of
I
these
know.
4
I wish
questions.
people didn't feel intimidated to come, but we just want to hear from everybody, I mean, we don't care if you sound articulate. Please, half the time I don't sound articulate up here,
We'll try to do
Cool.
that.
That's
Okay,
cool.
thank you.
We'll make that request today.
That'd be great.
The third one, the third forum is December 11th
At High School North.
at High School North.
Media Center.
And it's up there too,
Tomorrow night's high school.
that strategic planning page is current, and we really work on that to make sure that,
And I'm sure Chris will be pushing that out on social media,
yep.
as he usually does. Reminders.
Is the December meeting like when we start to come up with solutions, or like when is the problem solving actually happening? Because we're doing a lot of data collecting and.
Post Forum 3, when we start making action
So
plans,
after
you have to
December.
keep, and tell people this, you have to keep attending the board meetings after Forum 3. 'Cause Forum 3 is when we'll lay out what we're going to do moving forward. But the actual implementation of these plans will happen throughout the year at our meetings. So please tell people to keep attending, stay active, stay engaged throughout the entire process so they're informed as it goes forward and they're not surprised when a decision is made or something is voted on.
So ultimately, it's a Board of Ed decision.
At the end of the day, yes, the
decision.
9 of us will have to vote and make the ultimate decision at the end of the day.
Okay, I think that wraps up that aspect of the agenda. And now we'll move on to Middletown Friends of Diverse Learners. I think Heather's with us.
I'm here. So good to meet you. I'm Heather Stafford. I'm the other co-chair for MTFODL. So one thing I want to address that's not on here, we had a planning meeting with administration at the end of October. That went really well. We had the opportunity to meet Dr. Tiedemann, who's the new director of Office of Student Services. And it was really exciting to meet her and, some of the ideas and plans for the year forward. We're obviously excited about the goal for this year for inclusion. I thought that was great to hear about. And we do have some plans for upcoming workshops and presentations. Our first is going to be coming up, which is on here, the How Inclusion Works. We're really lucky to get NJCIE to present because Fred, the director there, is in high demand, and so we were lucky to get him to be able to present to our community. And this is open to all parents because we know, inclusion really, for it to work, it really does take the support of all of our community. And it also takes, the foundation that's being put in place by things like responsive classrooms. So I think we're in a really good place to move forward on that. And so again, and Dr. Tiedemann will be there to introduce NJCIE, and she'll be there to meet parents as well. So we want to encourage parents to come out with that, and we really appreciate the district's support for that event. And we're also planning another event in January to show a movie called, it's a documentary called Intelligent Lives, which is focused on the challenges faced by students with cognitive disabilities and what they face. And we're going to have some parents also who have kind of gone through the process and are now dealing with young adults, and to kind of speak to their experiences and to kind of encourage parents to do all they can for their kids. And also another one for the spring on dyslexia issues and reading challenges. So we have a full year planned, and we really appreciate the district's support. Another goal that we came up with at the meeting is to try to increase parent participation. We have like almost 2,000 students who are special ed, and it's hard to reach everybody, and we know these parents also are under a lot of stress too, like everyone. So it's going to be a challenge to get them out. So we really appreciate your support in getting the word out. And if you have updates to your social media contacts, please let us know so that we're getting the word out to the right person in your, to get it to the PTF pages and out to your PFA and PTA groups.
Dr. Seifert, if I could add too, we were really grateful for the choices. I think that first meeting went really good, and we're grateful for the choices that you've made with those first 2 parent workshops. We were completely excited, on board about it, and really are looking forward to getting actively involved. I know I'm going to be at the inclusion workshop, and looking forward to the second. It's like everything you suggested. We were like, yeah, this is perfectly aligned with what we're trying to do as a district. And so I think those workshops hopefully and if you could all help us get additional people to attend, that would be great, because that really is our goal.
Right. Yeah, we're also talking about increasing some of the representations at our meetings with administration to kind of bring in more parents into the process. So, if there's parents in your community that want to get involved, we'd love to see them. So again, our next event is going to be November 18th, and then we have a parent meeting in December at the library. Thanks again.
Thanks, and thank you for all your positive feedback on the strategic planning topic. That was really awesome. I sat there going, thank you, I really appreciate it. Okay, let's move on to the Board of Education update. I don't know if there was one, you guys were strategic planning.
Yes, that's it. Come to the strategic planning meeting tomorrow night, and the inclusion workshop on Monday. And our next board meeting is November 20th, right?
November 20th.
At 7 p.m. Right.
It's actually at 8 p.m. right, for the public.
Yeah,
Oh, 8 p.m. for the public, sorry, 8 p.m. for the public.
Okay, old business, as usual, I'm still collecting the $10 stipend from all the schools, and primarily it's used to remember the secretaries at Christmas and at springtime. We were going to use it for snacks, but it just didn't quite work out, so there's still lovely coffee, so please partake. New business, does anybody have any topics for new business?
At our last PT meeting, a lot of parents spoke out that they wanted more information on test results and DRAs and FMPs, and they felt there needed to be more transparency. So John Little, who is our rep for Lincroft, was there, and he did take that back to the board ed meeting the following week and said that that would be brought up, I believe he said in a closed door session. A lot of parents had opinions on this. It was a lengthy conversation at our PTA meeting. Our principal mentioned that this is a bigger discussion and it's not for him to decide how those materials are distributed. So some parents were wondering, okay, now that it's brought up at the closed meeting, how do parents voice their opinions on that? Should they come to that Board of Ed meeting on November 20th and weigh in on that issue? Because it seems that many parents I speak with as well are wondering what happens to all this data that is collected. So should I tell them they should come to that meeting?
So I think there's a misunderstanding.
Okay.
What we said is that we would bring it up at the Board of Ed Curriculum Committee meeting.
Okay.
So all the directors are there, including our Director of English Language Arts, our elementary supervisor, because I guess because the standardized test results come to parents. Parents get the score report from the state. So
We're talking about
right. So then the next step is to talk to the directors about should we approach Lincoln about buying a package, because then it becomes a purchase, right, for generating parent reports, because there's a parent reporting feature. We have never purchased it because remember we were piloting Linkit and deciding if we were going to keep with the contract. Was it giving us the information we thought it would? Was it actionable, valid data? So now that we're in year 2 implementation, should we add a feature to do parent reporting? We've already been talking about that, by the way. So, because the reports the teachers get are class profiles, so there is a different report that Linkit can offer us. It's of course an add-on feature for parents. So then
they can get a report today if they want it.
It's different. It's different from the one that like a hard like a meta-analysis that the state gives you in that student profile from the NJSLA. That's what we're talking about. So like a summary report. So we're going to talk about that. And then in terms of DRA and FMP, there's many of us in the curriculum department who support, communicating out DRA and FMP levels. There's different research on that and different opinions and philosophies on that, and I appreciate all sides of that because even teachers are cautioned not to use those scores to box in a child in terms of what they should be exposed to with text, because then you're limiting them. There are different scores that are generated. There's the instructional level, then there's the independent level. So you have to make sure that the people who are using those reports and those scores understand how to use them to help guide a student to find the right text to pair with. So, but we have talked about that in the past. And we will be talking about that as a department with the Board of Ed members who are on the committee in terms of, do we want to go another step forward now that we have, this is the final year of training teachers on FMP, so the rollover from DRA to FMP should be complete, I believe, by the end of this year, if not next year, so that we're using one reporting feature. We've moved away from the DRA because it is somewhat of an antiquated model, assessment model at this point, because it's not necessarily Common Core aligned, and when I say Common Core, we all know that there are New Jersey student learning standards, but they're really Common Core, minus a few pronouns and adjectives. So now that the teachers are trained and fully implementing the new reading assessment, is this the moment, the time to better, I want to use train loosely, but explain to parents how to report those scores and how they can use them to support their child? Yes.
So this came up last year in a big way, and this was a pretty lengthy discussion. I know that we haven't reviewed our park scores within each school, at least at the elementary level. So once that happens, this will come up again. What should I tell those parents who have these concerns and want to voice their opinion? Because again, it was voiced to our principal who said, it's not my decision how the district, handles this. Should we tell them that it is being reviewed right now, and because they're going to ask again?
Clarify for me.
At the PTA,
What are they asking?
They're asking,
So I understand.
why don't we have, this came up at the August meeting that was at Lincroft, and it came up at our PTA meeting last month. Why do we not get FNP scores at home, and how can we understand where kids are at reading? So, because it came up in August and October, they're asking what the answer is. So, just to be able to deliver to them.
So, okay, so I just want to make sure we're grounded on FNP.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's really, but you brought up park, so then I got confused a little bit. So the schools do, the principals do give the school-specific NJSLA Old Park for the school. We do the district-wide presentation, which we did in September, which is like the snapshot of the district. We actually have follow-up information now that Michelle and I are actually working on to send out to the principals this week, which is a multi-year analysis of park and NJSLA data that the principals will be able to show and share, and we'll actually be doing some of that at a future board meeting from a district perspective as well. But with regard to F&P, that is what we're going to talk about at our next Board of Ed Curriculum Committee meeting.
Okay, so
how should that information be shared with parents, and what will need to be done so that when the information is shared, it doesn't result in unintended consequences of it being misused. Because again, you don't want to limit or box in a child to that score, because the score is really meant, and I don't know if we've ever really spoken publicly about that. An F&P or DRA assessment is given by the teacher who is the primary deliverer of the reading instruction to help identify the instruction that's necessary for that student. So what skills are they missing, where are they excelling, and how do I close that gap? And what text do I use when I'm providing direct instruction of reading? So you don't want to misuse the score to assume that that's the only type of text my child should ever read, because that could actually have adverse results and limit their reading growth. So that's the tricky part. The assessments were always developed for instructional purposes, for the reading teacher. So that's where there's like that debate over how do you release that to parents, and if and when you do, how do you communicate to them and explain to them how to use that score so that it doesn't actually stem the tide of reading growth or development within the students.
I think that's one of the things that we see, and I don't know if it's just Lincroft, but we seem to have an inordinate number of parents who are teachers, and they're looking to have those conversations with their children because they're doing different things in their district. And then for the parents who aren't teachers, myself included, I would benefit from that. Okay, now that I know what I'll do with it.
Right.
So I think it is important to find that balance between the parents who are very knowledgeable and the ones who are really trusting in the teacher to share, this is what I should be.
Yeah, and there was a learning curve for our teachers, because migrating from the DRA assessment, which was very different, how to administer and how to interpret results, and then how to use them to drive instruction, to the Fountas and Pinnell running records, because that's really what it is. It's a running record. If anybody's watching this who is a teacher and a parent, they understand that. It does give you different results to help focus your instruction. There's less emphasis in F&P on written responses, because what we've learned through implementation of the DRA is that one of the drawbacks to it was it limited a student's true disclosure of reading ability, because they may have a lag in their writing ability, to communicate their thoughts. Whereas the F&P removes that, because developmentally you're always going to be lagging in your writing ability behind your reading ability as a developing child, because that's language acquisition. So, one of the things now we know is, well, the DRA was kind of like giving us almost like false reads in some ways of reading ability, because the writing was being taken into account. So the F&P kind of removes that. So as the teachers have learned how to use the F&P and administer it, and then use the results to drive instruction, that's been like the 1 to 2, 3 year phase-in process, because we started with kindergarten. And this year, I believe are we up to 4th grade, Pete? Correct me if I'm wrong. 4th and 5th or 4th? Do you know off the top of your head? I know it's up to 4th, definitely. I think it might be 4th and 5th. Okay, so then it's 4th, thank you. Last year for 4th grade, thank you. And then next year will be the 5th grade. I know we had to phase it in, because it's costly, to buy the new materials, to do the training, and you kind of roll up the class, when you do something like that. So yes, We are actively talking about
You
it.
need to tell them.
We are actively talking about it. Actually, I welcomed Mr. Little spoke to me about it,
Yeah.
and I welcomed him to bring it up because it's a debate we've been having
And like
amongst
I said,
ourselves.
He was at
you
both of
know.
those meetings. It's come up twice in a short time, so we
Yeah.
just want to be able to say, if it
And
comes
there's
up
no-
again, what can we tell our parents?
Right.
What can we talk
Please
about?
encourage the parents. There's no reason why at parent-teacher conferences, or if they want to request, I mean, I know, having been a former River Plaza principal, I'm looking at former River Plaza parents over there. I used to say to the parents, if you're interested in knowing, ask the teacher. There's no stopgap. There's no like what's that called? Like a gag order. Thank you on teachers to communicate that, to the parents. So and I see them shaking their heads because they knew to ask. Ask your teachers if you want to know. So just because it's not maybe officially communicated, like some districts I know, we've seen have it on report cards, it's like a sliding scale, but then the kids are seeing that and what consequences that have on them when they're seeing something, so there's all, because then it goes into like, does that have negative impact on a child, when they see where they should be versus where they are. So it's a lot of sticky issues, around it.
I was just gonna say, I've had the same experience, and I've always just asked the teacher to have a conversation. And I remember, like, kindergarten, kids got books home with a letter on it, and it caused mass hysteria. What the teacher? And it's just worth having this conversation with the teacher, because that's the way it was always explained to me, that it's a teaching tool.
Yeah.
And you just...
And just because for instructional purposes you're using a certain level, doesn't mean that if a child has a real interest or passion in picking out a text that may be above what their level that they're being used for instruction, that you should limit them. Because please, if you're capturing some videotape, don't do that. Because if sometimes you can overcome deficits you may have to understand a text just because you have real interest and passion. So then there's more motivation there to get through the text, and comprehend what you're reading.
What's the approximate cost for this, for the parents to receive these reports?
We have not gotten a
No
quote
idea,
yet.
okay.
I was just going to also add, I'm sure you're already considering it already, but just to make sure that full IEP process too is included in that discussion, because we get questions from parents like, well, the district collecting the data, why can't I see it all, or can I see it all? But then, it's some parents get information, some don't on the data. And so if that could be just part of that whole discussion too, I think that'd be good, just so we have a consistent district-wide process.
Parents can always request.
Okay, that's what we've been
information,
talking about.
regarding any information that we collect from standardized assessment. It's part of a child's.
Because I think it's also
record,
important
in
for
some ways.
measuring.
It's not the formal, but.
For measuring progress, or identifying an area where a kid's still struggling, that kind of thing. It can be really valuable to be able to look at that.
But I'll certainly have Ms. Merrow communicate that out. Mrs. Ellis, I just want to make sure I'll make sure Mrs. Merrow communicates out consistently to all the principals and the elementary teachers that if they should be communicating during conferences. I think that's actually part of what we give them as guidelines, as part of like what they should be talking about at conferences. Like what is your child's current FMP or DRA level, how they can support them at home, with that. So we'll reiterate that.
Okay, Danielle has her hand up.
I had this separate new business because we have a high school and the administrator in, and a number of parents reach out to me asking me, we understand there's been a questionable, should we say, club at Middletown North, and so a lot of people have been asking me, we understand how to create a club, and I think it's incredible. I've seen kids do it. What I think people are looking for answers to is, what is the criteria to turn down a club? Is there a criteria? Is there criteria to turn down a club? Like, we understand, like, I think it's great that a kid can say, hey, I'm interested in this, and get a teacher advisor and make a club.
Well, I think there's two
without getting
areas we have
too
to
North
discuss.
specific, like
There's clubs and there's the opportunity or right for students to meet and to be heard. And that's a legal position. And then there's an approved club by the Board of Education. And an approved club by the Board of Education includes a stipend for the educator or educators who are actually the advisors of that club. So there's a process. And every year, all of the approved clubs or organizations that have taken the opportunity to exercise their right to meet at all the information that is turned in, and it usually starts the approval process for an approved club with an advisor who is voluntarily saying, kids want to do this, I want to support it, let's see how it goes, let's see how many students participate, and that's a process that happens over time, and then at the end of the year, that's compared with all the other approved clubs, the attendance of those approved clubs, how many times they met, and all of that information is reviewed by building level administration, and then they make their recommendation every year about what clubs should be approved and if new clubs should be added.
So if we got an advisor and wanted to start a Republican club or a Democrat club, could we do that?
Yeah.
I've always been told that we couldn't, so I'm surprised to hear that. So if a group of students got an advisor and wanted to start a Republican club, they could.
They would have the right to meet. That process at the end of the year would be reviewed like any other club, and then recommendations would be made by the building level administration. And really, the number one thing that drives them is, amount of participation, student interest, how many times they've met, the kind of activities that that they've been involved with, was that involved in service, or what was the added value for the students, right? So all of that would be
to become an official club, but just to meet in the school. Because when I was doing the scholarship committee, and we would ask, one of the questions we would ask the kids, these seniors, these incredible seniors at the end, was, what do you think that we're missing? What don't we have? And the kids really were looking for an outlet to talk about politics, whichever side of the right, and I'm not taking a side here, whichever side of the road that you happen to be on, they were like, well, we can't have a club where we can discuss current events, or we're not allowed to have that club. But you're telling me they can do, if they can find an advisor, that a group of kids could start a Democrat club or could start a Republican club. It just wouldn't be a stipend for that teacher. And so there's no real criteria to say no to a club.
Well, as long as it doesn't in any way disrupt the regular, as long as it's consistent with all of the policies and procedures of a student in good standing, as long as it doesn't in any way disrupt the school or the educational mission, as long as it's not disrespectful to other students. There's those normal things that follow our regular student handbook. I mean, it would have to be, their normal practices would have to be in line with the student handbook. But students have
So let me be very clear though, this is not approved by the Board of Education. This club, I can't be more clear about this club has not been approved by the Board of Education. And there are members of this board, I'll speak for myself as a private taxpayer, not speaking for the board. There are members of the board that are appalled. And I will urge you, as a member of this community with 2 small children, not speaking for the board, to please look up Turning Point USA and see what you think as a parent if you want this club in our district. Because I do think it's very serious. I think not enough people understand exactly what's going on here. This is not approved. They do have their First Amendment rights to assemble, but our policies right now are such that children can gather and have these clubs for a year without the Board of Education even really knowing about it. And that's something the board's looking into as well, because we would like to maybe possibly change the wording so that a club has to be approved by the Board of Education to assemble. So these are all sorts of things that the board is working on right now. I was just talking to you about how strongly I feel about this. But as the board president, I will tell you that we're looking into these policies, that this club does have a right to assemble, but it is not approved by the board. But like I said, as a private taxpayer and citizen, please look this club up. And if you do have something to say about it, please let the board know. Because I think it's important. It's called the Turning Point USA.
But that club aside, I've always been under the impression that you couldn't. So this is actually a good thing, that if these kids want to get involved in politics in some way and start their own club, they can, to have that discussion. For a year.
The board is discussing, do we want a partisan political club?
What age?
No, I don't necessarily think any partisan political clubs belong in our school, but if that's the case, then neither does this one. But if you're going to allow this one, I assume you have to allow Republican children to do, or, you know, kids who want to talk about that, and Democrat children who want to talk about that, or independent children who want to bring them both together, you know, whatever the case may be. But I know it's been kind of a sticky wicket.
The wording is so vague in our current policies right now, if you look them up online, the policies, it's the kind of thing that's supposed to prohibit someone for running for office and handing out their flyers on campus. Like, that's what it's supposed to prohibit. It doesn't specifically say that kids can't meet, so that would violate their First Amendment rights.
Is it middle school or high school?
Yeah.
High school. Oh, I'm sorry, we're talking about high school.
Yeah.
I would think this would be a challenge for a teacher to be involved in.
Yes.
The advisor.
Yeah.
And that's what people are asking about.
But also, I mean, I haven't heard any of this until right now, but it makes me curious what the rules are about when a club belongs in a school versus in a community. Like, any kid can decide to form a club outside of their school at any time. Why is this even being considered as a school club?
Because it has an advisor.
Okay.
School advisor.
There is
There's
school.
a faculty member facilitating it.
That said, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because I've watched some incredible kids. A personal friend of mine just started the social anxiety club, and he worked his butt off to get a teacher to back it, and literally started a club for kids who don't know how to join clubs. Like, it's so cool that our school does this. So I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, oh, we have to restrict clubs. I just want to make sure that, you know, like I said, we had a lot of parents asking about this, and that we're working on it in some way.
It's important to discuss this further and to adjust what we need to, policy-wise, and to have these discussions as a community. I'm glad you brought it up. I didn't want to bring it up here. I wanted to kind of wait till November 20th to talk about it with the entire community. But, you know, someone will probably bring it up November 20th, and we will have a discussion about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other new business while we're...
I just want to take the opportunity, shameless plug for human resources. You know that last year we went through the transition to partner with ESS, to partner with us to provide our substitute services for teachers, paraprofessionals, and secretaries. On our website since July has been a link for any community members, any interested applicants. I would just ask if you could communicate with your PTAs, maybe put information out to your parents. There may be a lot of parents who are looking for part-time work, that they can make their own schedule. This is, I mean, it's a great opportunity to serve as a substitute in the district, because it really is a flex schedule. You totally control when you want to work, what hours you want to work, what positions, what responsibility you want to assume. Obviously, you know, secretary, paraprofessional, teacher is probably the most responsibility. So there's levels of involvement, but if you could please share with your parent groups if anyone is interested. This is actually on our website under the Human Resources tab, but it's a flyer that's there. And if you're a district employee, I don't know, I don't think any of you are, right? You get actually a $75 refer a friend ESS gives. Once you become an ESS employee, you can refer a friend and get $75 for everybody that you have signed up. So just saying.
Ms. Figgis?
Yes.
I remembered when this came out, there was a bunch of, I believe it was under this.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Correct me if my memory is inaccurate. I believe when this was presented at a board meeting, there were a number of the paras that turned out expressing concern about them not being scheduled as much or not being able to pick up shifts the way they wanted to.
We've actually onboarded any paraprofessional who has the availability in their board-approved hour schedule to also serve as a substitute.
Right.
VSS has partnered with those. We've identified, working with the union, with the paraprofessional union leadership, we've identified who those paras are who have availability within their work schedule to serve as subs, and they've onboarded with VSS to sub.
Do we have feedback from them yet that they're satisfied that their concerns were addressed, or not yet?
I know that we met with the Teamsters leadership last month, and everything was positive about the transition. There were no complaints brought forward about the transition. I will say we talked about this at our last board meeting, so a quick recap. Our fill rate, we knew it was going to be challenging to improve our substitute fill rate for teachers because we were already being so aggressive as a human resources department. You know, the assistants who work in the office with me are amazing. So we have already like a 94% fill rate for teachers in the district as an average, general average the last school year. We're actually running about 96 now and ESS was really worried about moving that needle, because what most companies will tell you is 80% is considered pretty good. We were like already at excellent. How do you move from excellent to superior? You know, so we're already even increasing that. But more importantly, because we know that one of the main drivers in making this decision was because of our lack to be able to fill the paraprofessional vacancies. We were running somewhere around the high 30s in terms of percent of vacancies filled for paraprofessional absences. Right now, we've been averaging in the high 80s. And secretaries has moved as well. We were functioning somewhere around 48, 50% of fill rates for secretaries, and right now we're running somewhere similar to paraprofessionals in like the high 70s, low 80s with fill rates. So we are seeing improvement. ESS has actually, we are the first district that they've partnered with nationwide, or actually in the state of New Jersey, I don't know about nationwide, that they have paid for, and they employed a district manager here in our human resources suite. They pay for her salary. Deanna is amazing. If you're interested in working in the district, call Deanna. Scanlon, I'm pretty sure her information is on our human resources website. If not, I'll make sure it's there. It might be on the flyer. She onboards substitutes on a daily basis. So she is increasing our sub pool in a very difficult time. You know, when the economy is doing good and there's low unemployment rates, guess what areas suffer in terms of trying to attract new employees? Positions like substitutes, because people are looking for more permanent work, right? And when there's permanent work available, they opt for that in lieu of substitute work. But even in these times when we're experiencing, I guess, a good thing, you know, low unemployment numbers, we are still onboarding and recruiting new, and she's building our sub pool, so that's really good. And our numbers are moving up, which is most important. We want kids to have adults, you know, with them in instruction to continue in their teacher or para's absence. So that's the most important thing. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. All right, so that kind of closes out the business, I guess. If no one has any more. Informational items, we have none to share this time. My responsibility will be to get the slide deck out, and as well as some other action items that I've written down. I'll get those out in advance of the minutes. Our next meeting, I think, is December 2nd. Sorry about putting XX instead. I'm still on vacation. So our next meeting is December 2nd. Possible topics to discuss. We're wide open. If you have any suggestions or anything you'd like to see covered, please, you know my email. Get back to me.
December 2nd is a Monday.
Oh, okay, then December 3rd. There you go.
December 3rd, 9:15.
Yes, it's a good thing I put XX then. I would have given you all the wrong information. So December 3rd, and again, if you have any topics, anything that comes up,
I think the original calendar had it on December 10th, the following Tuesday. The one
You know what, it's parent-teacher conference is that first week of December.
Yeah, you know what, the time is depending on Dr. George's meetings, because he meets with his school principals after this one. So it'll have to be, if it's December 10th, then that should be fine, because I have it. Okay. So December 10th, yeah. Sorry about that. Unless you guys are Thank you very much for coming. Have a lovely rest of the week. Happy Thanksgiving. See you next month.
My boss.